Hey everybody, welcome to the ATDev Podcast. I'm so happy to be joined today by Rachael Wallach, a disruptive force in the disability entrepreneurship space. Hey Rachel, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. And I'm so excited to be talking to you. I think assistive technology just makes such a big difference to people's lives and really doesn't get talked enough about. I'm just really happy to be here.
Oh, thank you, and I completely agree, and that's a big reason of why we started the podcast. So we're in the right space. So it'd be great if you could just give a little background on yourself for our listeners and talk a little bit about your journey and how you ended up where you're at today.
Awesome. So, a little accidentally, and it starts with an accident. 25 years ago, I fell and I broke my spine.
Hmm.
And ever since then, I've had impaired mobility. It gave me the opportunity to interact with a whole range of different types of services, from social care to medical care to assistive technology providers. And maybe my bar was too high, but I just felt like things weren't working as well as they could, and there might be some quick wins.
Yep.
And so when I graduated from university, I did a fast track management training scheme in the public sector. And I worked at the intersection between health and social care. And actually, my goal, I think, when I started out, I wanted to be like head of social care, social services somewhere.
Oh
So
wow.
really solidly in the public sector. And entrepreneurialism and business kind of just appeared along the way.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's not a planned story. It's not a planned story.
Yeah. I think often the case for entrepreneurs and definitely in the assistive technology space, I can really relate to what you're saying about the need and passion for wanting to improve things because there are so many things to be improved upon.
Yeah.
And some of your early work, I think, after you graduated Stanford was disrupt disability, building customizable wheelchairs. Can you talk a little bit more about your work?
Yeah. So actually, that started just before business school.
Oh, okay.
And that it started by accident. I was working in the public sector at the time. I was working in policy and government, and I'd spent a lot of time working for the NHS. And I was on holiday. I went to Jordan to learn how to scuba dive,
Oh, wow.
and I
Amazing.
it was really cool. It was really cool. And the person that I went with, she wanted to visit an NGO that was basically using 3D printing to support refugees in the Syrian crisis.
Oh, wow.
And so that sounded pretty cool too. So I asked if I could join her. And I did. And one of the things they showed us was a 3D printed prosthetic hand, and it was fully customized. They'd made it for a boy who lost his hand in the crisis. And the thing that really got me about it, or two things got me about it. One of them, with my work hat on, was that they said it had cost them $39 to make. And
Yeah.
I'd owned those budgets in services for children with disabilities back in the UK, and they are or were hundreds of dollars more expensive than that, or
Sure.
times more expensive than that.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that struck me. Anyway, the thing that really got me was they'd made the hand to look like the cartoon character, the hero Ben 10's hand.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. And they'd done it because it was the boy's favorite superhero. And I just thought if I needed a prosthetic hand, I would rather have a superhero's hand than anything else. So I just loved what they were doing. And I knew that there were challenges around providing customized wheelchairs for folks, particularly in low resource settings, but even in the National Health Service, the pressure on budgets is really significant, and it's costs so much to make customized devices and customized wheelchairs that is a real barrier to access, and that's really limiting for folks. So I asked them whether anyone was using digital fabrication to make customized wheelchairs more cheap. And they said no, not as far as they were aware. I did some Googling. And at this point, like, I didn't know anything about technology. Listened to a Radio 4 documentary or the program about 3D printing, but that was it.
Yeah.
And so I just went and found maker spaces and random folks like bike makers, lock maker, as well as some designers and a lot of wheelchair users, and organized some hackathons just to explore the idea. So that was really the genesis of the work with disrupt disability.
I love that. I love how really grassroots you took an approach to it because that's really what's needed when you're taking these really hyper specific solutions for people. You're not going to be able to find something mass produced that
Yeah.
is already out there. You really need to take a hyper individualized approach.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's absolutely right. I think there's something around user centered design that I saw during those hackathons. Again, somewhat accidentally. In the first hackathon that we did, we were really focused on the kind of low cost side and more so than customization at that point. And someone said, I don't know why we're spending all this time with talking about digital fabrication. We could just make a low cost wheelchair taking something off the shelf like a garden chair and
Sure.
putting wheels on it. And I realized that there was a big gap between what this designer's experience had been and how he was thinking through and how many wheelchair users experience life. So the next hackathons we did, I asked an NGO to bring a bunch of different wheelchairs, and they
Mm,
brought some of the like the big clunky folding wheelchairs in
yeah.
hospitals. Okay, so they brought a bunch of them. So totally not customized, very heavy, really built to be cheap, and also not built to enable people to maneuver them themselves.
Mm.
And then they also brought some lightweight wheelchairs, and I think they also brought some basketball wheelchairs as well.
Oh, yeah, those are cool.
Yeah, and we just had everyone have a go. And that was really interesting because no one suggested taking an off the shelf garden chair as a sort of low cost solution. Yeah, it really just, no discussion needed to be had about why weight makes a difference or why customization matters. And people started talking much more in terms of functionality. So folks that didn't have experience with wheelchair users or using wheelchair themselves were really talking about what kinds of things they want to do in life and how design could support that. And then there was another step. So the third step was at some point, we did a series of hackathons. We decided to start the hackathon by asking everyone to draw a picture of their ideal wheelchair. So if they imagined
Oh,
they
wow.
needed to use, yeah.
I
And
love that. That's
it
such a
was,
great thought exercise.
yeah, it wasn't easy for everyone. It wasn't easy for everyone, but that shifted things away from function, or to some extent away from function, to aesthetic as well. A lot of discussion around what it would look like. We had a young designer who wanted a pink wheelchair. We had a guy, he was like a middle aged guy, who was like, I want red wheels, which I think sounds awesome. And we had folks that like the first thing that they'd drawn was like a coffee holder.
Yeah,
So yeah, it taught me a lot about user-centered design and some of the ways in which you can help people to go through that journey to really empathize and think about what kind of design might be needed and what kind of customizations would really make a difference in their quality of life.
I love that. That's such a enlightening story, and I think it really touches on something that's often overlooked in medical device design, is that these devices are often used by people when they're either injured or in our case, our wheelchairs are really part of us and they go with us everywhere. And I have definitely felt at times insecure about the industrial design of my chair and feeling like there's too many exposed wires or it's not a reflection of how I am, whereas the outfit someone wears is a reflection of how they're feeling that particular day. And I think that's something really important that needs to be addressed by device manufacturers as they think about design. Yes, form follows function, but also these devices really have an impact on the overall emotional state of the user.
Yeah, I the form follows function I struggle with sometimes. Another thought experiment that we landed on was to say if you only had one pair of shoes
Hmm.
and you had to wear them 24/7
Right.
whenever you're moving, like what would they look like? How would you design them? Yeah. And the trade offs that people make every day when they're choosing their shoes, there are many times when form is more important than function. And people make those trade offs and don't think too much about making them in everyday life. And I think sometimes it's important to think about or give people who are using assistive devices the opportunity to make decisions around those trade offs too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great call out. So, more recently, I know you've been working on some startups and startup ideas. I would love to hear your experiences are so diverse and cross cultural, both really all over the world. And I would love to hear a little bit more about how that has shaped your thinking process and your ideating as you look at some of these new startup ideas and comparing them to what's working here now and, like we said earlier, what could be possible in the future.
Yeah, really great questions and really exciting stuff. If I think about it from a sort of technology lens and more of a function lens, I think there are two incredibly exciting opportunities around mobility. And one of the things that one of the reasons for the sort of why is now moment is the aging population. A lot
Right.
of people, most people, 1 in 4 people over the age of 65 in the US have a mobility impairment. Most people will experience impaired mobility at some point in their life.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so as the baby boomers age, that this is just becoming much problem that just affects more people and is more top of mind. And yeah, two ways. One is I think that both in a research context and also there are some very cool startups, including what mine has done, has, have been trying to turn gait into the sixth vital. You can learn
Right.
a lot from how someone moves before other physical signs emerge. You can see from someone's gait whether they are likely to develop Parkinson's, similarly Alzheimer's. So there's some really interesting, you can tell a lot of interesting stuff from how someone moves. And
Right.
wearable technologies and super cheap sensors, less sophisticated than the insides of an Apple Watch, can unlock some of these things. And the sort of two coolest things that come to mind about them are one is we can help people adapt to impaired mobility better. So that data can also provide like a behavioral loop. Right now,
Interesting.
right now people will go to a physical therapist, and the physical therapist will teach them stuff about how to adapt their lifestyle and move more safely, move in ways that are ergonomically better. But most people, when they leave the physical therapist office, a lot of that goes out the window. Yeah. So that kind of data can provide a behavioral loop to help people adapt better. And then the second kind of way in which, or like really exciting opportunity, I think, is around the psychological side. Many people, when they experience a mobility impairment, respond with denial. Many of us will have had relatives who maybe are walking a little bit wobbly and say, no, I still have the body of a 60-year-old or something. And similarly, also may have had relatives, known older adults who just really stop moving. And maybe they've had a fall, maybe they've had friends who've had a fall, and they just become really fearful around it. And these two
Yeah.
responses, avoidance and denial, they're trauma responses. And unless you address those, it's really hard to help people engage with products, devices, and therapies that can help them adapt. And so some of the conversational AI stuff, coaching, this, these sorts of technologies, I think, are going to enable people to have a little bit more support in the kind of mental, psychological side of that journey.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And again, I think that's a really underexplored and understudied aspect of recovery and rehab. The physical rehab is obvious to see, but the emotional and mental journey is equally, if not more important. And I think having a more robust way of supporting people in that is really important. And also, what you're saying about gait, I think, is really interesting because what we've been seeing a lot is these AI systems are constantly looking for novel data sources,
Yeah.
and a physical data source of being able to, as you said, track the way someone walks is a novel data source that can be used to integrate and build smarter models.
Yeah. I think yeah, I agree. With regards to the mental side of adapting to mobility impairments, we've been really lucky. Our first investor or major investor was Serena Williams's venture fund.
Oh, wow, amazing.
Yeah, and she liked what we were doing because we framed this as not just a physical solution, but really about it being about someone's mental game. And
Right.
she got it because there are similarities with sports, elite sports. We don't think of that as just being about the physical, we think about it being about the mental game too. So I think that there is increasing recognition, and people are seeing these sorts of parallels with things like sports, where the mental journey is such a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. One statistic we often quote in our pitches is 10,000 people in the US turn 65 every day, which is just
I love it.
staggering.
I love
Yeah.
it. I might borrow it.
Yep. You
Really
can,
good.
yeah, you
It's
can use
really
it
good.
if we can use
Yeah.
the 1 in 4 has mobility issues.
Done. Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, it's an exciting time to be building in this space.
Yeah. It's a really exciting time. Really exciting time. It's also not just about what the kind of new technologies can directly unlock, but when I started in entrepreneurialism, when I first started a
Yeah.
company, everything had to be done by humans. And the pace of change and the speed at which we've been able to grow in the last probably year and a half is pretty extraordinary because of things like ChatGPT and building using agentic
Yeah.
approaches. So there's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's exciting for multiple reasons too.
Yeah. So how do you balance the promise of these new cutting edge technologies with the real realities of serving vulnerable populations?
That's a really great question. It's something that I think a lot about. There's something really human that you see in investors and you also see in cutting edge engineers, and that's that people want to build the kinds of futures they want to inhabit.
Mm.
And it can be really hard if the populations you're serving don't fit with that. And many people don't want to imagine that one day they will get old. They might not want to imagine that their loved ones might experience an impairment and need an assistive device.
Sure.
And that's a kind of inherent challenge. I think sometimes it's easy to build products that actually won't have much of an impact. And I'm a little bit guilty of this with some of the digital fabrication and 3D printing stuff, where you can really run with phenomenal, like generative designs that are really cool from a technology standpoint, but maybe are so expensive to make, they're just not going to end up in people's hands. And even though it's really exciting for everyone involved, they're not going to have that impact. So I think it's really important that we are all honest and that,
Yeah. Yeah,
sorry,
that's really insightful. I really love what you said about that. And it's true. I mean, the idea is to build a more equitable world and people age into disability, whether that is from an accident or just an age, and having the technological supports to enable people to have their self actualization of the life that they want to lead is really important.
yeah, I think that there are lots of folks who want to use technology to prevent aging, to prevent impairment, to delay it. And there are also lots of companies out there that are building products that help people adapt to aging, to impairment. And adapting is really important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today, Rachel. It's always a pleasure. And for people who want to connect or learn more about the work you're doing, what's a good way to reach out?
Yeah, send me an email, RACHAEL at limber, LIMBER.life. Please do.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you again. And thank you to all our listeners. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe and stay tuned until the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.